Good afternoon. So glad to be here live. It's been a while since I've been here live. I miss being over here live. I love doing our lives together. So I'm glad to be back today, and I'm so excited about where we are going this July. So this July, we are getting to the basics, and we are getting to the basics of funding. Right? God calls us to our vision. He calls us to our purpose. He calls us to our mission. But to be able to get there, we need money. That's the reality, right? We can live in our spiritual world, and it's true. There's a spiritual process to getting the funding, but at the same time, in the end, we need to be able to pull that together. And so that is the process that we will be walking through this July, and I'm excited to do that. We will be starting with our first pillar. So stick around to the end. Today we're gonna talk about specifically how to put the fun back in fundraising. So that's going to be our topic today. We are going to be going through a whole segment, I guess I would say, 4 weeks, which isn't our whole strategy, but it's most of it. It is a lot of that, and really it can get you really, really far, really, really fast. So I'm excited to start sharing that this month. And today we're going to start with putting the fun back in fundraising. So I'm excited for that. Now, stick around to the end so you can get access to all of the strategies that we have for beginning nonprofits. There'll be a link that we'll provide for you guys so you can get started on some of those other ones. So let's dig in today. So first I wanted to share, and we shared this on a written post, but just that idea of fundraising. Right? I resisted that title for so long. Like it was like, no, we're all funding this. Like it's not on me. And I resisted it for so long for a couple different reasons. So it's really important to get down into the nitty-gritty of what is keeping you stuck in the funding. Right? If you're here listening to a video on funding, you're probably stuck in some kind of way, shape, or form. And so it's important to figure out why. Is it fear? Is it anger? There could be so many different reasons that we are stuck in funding. And so it's important that we take some time to journal that, to really get to the bottom, pray through and journal that. So our first pillar of nonprofit funding is prayer. Okay. Now we're going to get specific on what that looks like. So don't think it's just like, oh, okay, good enough. Let's move on. Like there are very much specifics of what that looks like and how that should look in a nonprofit. And I won't be able to share all of them because it's endless. But at the same time, I'm going to share a few that have been really, really powerful for us. Now, in my journey, that idea of where I was getting stuck was fear. Number one, fear of like, I can't do this. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the education. I don't have that. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. I don't have the knowledge. I don't know how to do this. Right. But then the other thing that was really keeping me stuck was the idea that like people are depending on me. Like if I jump into this and I get this thing started and, some miracle, it gets started, then every month people are going to be depending on me for a salary. Every month people are going to be depending on me for food. We run a nonprofit in Kenya, and it's a maternity home. So the girls live with us for 3 years. So they've got school, they've got food, they need shelter, they need a lot of things. I don't want that responsibility. And if I have that responsibility, I want to share that with other people. So it's not just about me, but that it's about, all of us kind of pitching together to pull that together. And so those are some major things that kept me stuck. I would invite you into a journey of journaling, of praying through what that looks like for you. We've got to get to the baseline of what is keeping you stuck. And it's a cycle. Like right now, I'm in a cycle right now of being stuck on a higher level of fundraising. And so finding out what that is that's keeping me stuck, and then pushing past that and finding ways and strategies to push past that. And this last week has been an amazing week, and that's been awesome. And we put some strategies in place, and we walk it out. And so anyway, so that is number one. We really want to be careful on, or not really be careful, but figure out like what is keeping us stuck. Like what are we afraid of? It's usually fear in some kind of way, shape, or form. And so we want to really push through that and figure out what that looks like so then we can address it. Right? And coaching can be a really, really, really helpful area in that. Journaling, though, taking it to God, just praying and journaling can help as well. So those are some things in that area. So our first pillar is prayer. Number one, it is finding out where you're stuck, right? We just talked about that. That's good. Number two, though, it's really about relationship. So, like I shared, I've been stuck recently in a higher level of fundraising and just going to that next level. And so I was on a prayer call earlier this week. I guess it was last week now. It was last week, Wednesday. And we somehow made our way over to Deuteronomy 6. And so I wanted to share that because relationship is the key. Let me just, before I get into the actual scripture that I wanted to share with you guys today, relationship is the key. God does not care if you're your fundraiser or your fundraiser or even your nonprofit. He cares about relationship with you. And so as you put that first, Matthew 6:33, right? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you. That includes your social media. That includes your nonprofit. We need to be seeking him first. And that's first and foremost in our own lives, in the leadership of our nonprofit in general, as well as in our funding. Okay, so we need to be seeking him first. And how do we do that? By putting the first pillar first, and that's prayer/relationship. So what does that look like? What does your relationship with Christ look like? Are you really getting up in the morning, or are you sleeping in? Are you then spending that first half hour, 10 minutes, hour, whatever it is God's called you to, in relationship with him? You know, being in the word, being journaling, be praying, whatever that looks like. It's not a checklist. It's whatever it is he's called you to. But are we really doing that? And that's something I've been guilty of for the last handful of months. It's been busy over here in a lot of different ways. We are moving cross country. I had a daughter get married, and we have another wedding here local because it was a destination wedding, and we have a local one coming up, and we've just got a lot going on. A lot, you know, trips to Kenya. I could go on and on, right? All of the different things. We all have our things. We all have our busyness. But when we allow that busyness to overtake that relationship, you're going to feel disconnected. You're not going to have the strategy. You're not going to have the vision. You're not going to have what you need to move forward and to get the donations that you need. I mean, it comes out in practical ways, but it starts with relationship. And so making sure that's a priority, whatever that takes, put it in your calendar, whatever it takes, do it. Find an accountability partner that you get up and you do it together, like whatever it is, figure that out and do it. And it doesn't need to be a big thing. And that's sometimes where I've been a little bit lately, that idea of like, I have 7 books I want to read. I've got all this, I got all that, like so many options. And it needs to be preset. Like we don't want options. Like we should know, we get up, we go, and we're doing this. It can be small thing. Like the thing that I do now is our scripture writing. This month we're writing on freedom. And so every morning I get up and I go into my area where I do it. It's the same spot. You want to have a one spot that you do this. Always go to that same spot. Number 2, you have to have your strategy, whatever it is you're doing, planned out before you get there. All right. Number 1, it's going to pull you there, so you get it done. And number 2, like you don't want to spend your time, you know, that's precious time with God. You don't want to spend figuring it out what to do, right? Like you already want to know that. So I just print off the worksheet that Shawnee pulls together. And then every morning I go to that verse, whatever that verse is, and write it out. And then from there, you know, he leads me here, there, and everywhere and says some other things. And for me, it's about an hour in the morning, but that doesn't mean that's for you. And sometimes it is just 5 minutes because it's a whatever kind of day. But I will say I think it was George Mueller. It might've been somebody else, Martin Luther. I don't know, but it was one of those people that said, something about, I am so busy today, I need to pray even longer, was the general idea, right? That idea of I'm so busy, so I'm only going to spend 4 minutes today, versus I'm so busy, I have to spend an extra hour in prayer today because I'm so busy, right? So I invite me into that, and I invite you into that as well. And so that idea, whatever he's calling you to do, it's not a minute amount, but set it and then do it, honor it. And if you're having trouble honoring it, then get into it with someone else so you have that accountability and you guys can both be doing it silently, but together. Okay. So you want to have a specific place you go. You want to have a specific plan that you're going to run. And then you're also going to, if you need an accountability partner, get that in there. All right. So that's the first step of relationship. It's personal. It's not about anything but you and your relationship with Christ, letting him pour into you and you pour out and you cry out to him and whatever it is. And maybe it's your kids, maybe it's, provision for your family, maybe it's your nonprofit, whatever it is. But in that time, first and foremost should be you and him. Okay. And really pouring out and reaching out for you personally. Checking on your emotions. Where are you at on your different emotions? Where is that? Where are all those things? And then as you get through that time, you can bring, the nonprofit, you can bring the kids, you can bring the husband, you can bring, all these different pieces and parts, the circumstance, the challenging circumstances, whatever they are. But start with letting him pour into you. We've got a lot of strategies on that, and I could go for hours on that. And I am already 10 minutes in, and I haven't even started my scripture, so we're going to leave it there for now. But relationship, really pursue that relationship. Right. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get through everything I want to get to, but I want to take us to Deuteronomy 6. Number 1, the whole chapter is amazing, but I'm going to pull out a couple different parts that really stood out to me. And one just came up to me this morning. Oh, and I forgot my notebook that had my other notes in it, but that's okay. We'll just go off the cuff. So first verse that I really stood out to me today was Deuteronomy 6, verse 3. Hear, O Israel, it says that. Hear, Israel, it says. That idea of hear. If we don't take that quiet time with him, how are we ever going to hear him? We're not going to hear him in the busyness of life. We're not going to hear him as we listen to the radio necessarily. We're not going to hear him, in a lot of different ways. So we really need that quiet time to hear directly from him. Now, he'll use other people. So throughout the day, something on the radio might stand out to you, or something somebody says to you might really stand out. There could be a lot of different things that stand out. But it's because you took that time to listen and push into him early, just you and him. Okay. So hear was a really big word. Like, shh, stop talking. Hear, listen, right? Listen to him. Don't just be there with your laundry list of prayer requests from all your friends and family and yourself, right? Those are fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the extent of your relationship, right? That's just, putting things before him, and that's a good thing. But it's not the be all end all. That's not going to give you vision for your nonprofit. That's not going to give you funding for your nonprofit. That's not going to give you provision for your life, right? We need to hear from him. And then it comes up and says, hear, Israel, and be careful to obey. Obey means action. So obey, first of all, we want to wait, listen until we hear something, and then obey. So then we need to start taking action. It might be in the word, right? Like the word is clear about many, many things, right? We want to love God. We want to love others. We're going to get to that right in a minute. I mean, there's so many things it's clear about. Forgiveness, right? How to handle finances. I mean, there's so many things that the word is absolutely not to be double-minded. I could go on and on. They're in there. If you don't know, get in the word more, and you will know. They are in there. And so it's clear. Now, are we taking what we read? Like, I can say I read the Bible through in a year. That's awesome. Really great goal, really great thing. But if I'm not applying any of that to my life, what's the point? I mean, you can read whatever book you want. If you're not going to apply what you're reading, you're not going to get anywhere. Right? This book isn't about reading and saying, check mark, I read it. I got through it in a year, lucky me, or 6 months or 2 years or whatever, right? Like that's not what this is about. If you're reading something in here, do it. Like, how does that apply to my life? I very rarely, when I first started in the word, I did read through the Bible through in a year because I wasn't really hearing a lot from God. And so it was easier to read through in a year because it was like I wasn't hearing a lot. And that's okay, because you're learning more about him and you're learning how the whole Bible flows together. There's a lot that you're learning. So read through the Bible in a year. That's awesome. If you've done that, you've been around the word for a while, it's time to slow down. Maybe you're going to take one verse. Maybe you're going to take 2 verses, and you're going to actually read it and ask God to reveal to you where that applies in your life and where you should most apply that. Maybe it's in your parenting. Maybe it's in your nonprofit. Maybe it's just in your personal relationship with him and you. Maybe it's with your husband. Maybe it's with some family members, right? Maybe it's in a certain circumstance. But we need to be applying this stuff, you guys. We can't just read it and say, look at me, I read through the Bible in a year. Or look at me, I'm in 10,000 Bible studies. Or, whatever it is, right? Like if we're not applying what we're reading, there's no point. There's no point. So let's slow down and let's actually apply what we are reading and start doing it and walking that out. And we're not going to be perfect at it, and we're not meant to be. But are we attempting to walk that out with him? All right. Oh, gosh. I could go on and on. So number 1, hear. Number 2, obey. Then get up from the chair and do it. whatever it is. Maybe it was send an email. Maybe it was send a card to somebody. Maybe it was reach out to a donor. Maybe it was, I mean, it could be 1,000 different things, but do it. Even if it seems crazy. One example for me, when we were first on this journey in Kenya, as far as our nonprofit starting, I was presented with this opportunity to purchase a building, and we needed, like, I don't know, depending on what building we took, it was going to be $50,000 to $80,000, which it's not bad for land in a building, to be honest, when I look at it now. But in that moment, when I was way early and I was pretty much solo doing this journey, I was in Kenya solo. I was pretty much doing all this solo. $50,000. I was like, no way. That was one thing I was sure of. I was never, ever going to be able to raise that amount of money. Like, that is just never going to happen, especially not in the time frame that we needed it. And so it was like, okay, like, there's no way. There was just no way. I had this total mind block. So I went down to the ocean because I was there alone and I was just going stir crazy. Like, there was nobody in the place that I was staying, and I was just going stir crazy. Like, in my mind, like, there's got to be a way I can figure this out. Like, and I was like, no, there's no way you're going to figure this out. You're never going to be able to do this. So I go down to the ocean, and I'm just trying really hard to focus on the ocean, you know, and the sound and the waves coming in and out and the waves coming in and out. And as I'm like, focusing, trying to focus really hard on that, there's just this thought that pops in my head. And it was, if I can control the waves all around the world, all the time, how can I not bring whatever dollar amount you want to assign to that? 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, a million, like 50, whatever that is. And that moment, you know, that speaking to me, like, brought a little bit of peace. Like, I went from, like, anxiety level, like, here, like, through the roof, can't even stand it, to, okay, like, some middle level that actually I can at least calm down for a little bit. Come back to the house that I was staying at, and, you know, was convinced that I was grabbing my laptop. I was going to do a blog post, because every day there, when I was there then, I was doing a blog post. So I was going to do my blog post and share how freaked out I was about this, and I did that. But as I was grabbing the laptop, it was stuck in these bags. Someone had asked me to buy these bags for them, so they could sell them to go back to, yes, Dana, the sky is the limit. I'm glad. Thank you for interacting. If you're here, let me know you're here. I'm so bad at interacting that way. Yeah, the sky is the limit. Like, he can do anything. And that's where I want to get further in Deuteronomy to share about that. But to finish the story, I came back that my laptop was, you know, all mixed up in these bags. And all of a sudden, as I was trying to pull this laptop and the cord of it out of it, and I was getting frustrated, he was like, sell crafts. And I was like, yeah. Have you been to a craft fair lately? Like, they're selling things for $1 or $2. Like, we're talking $50,000. Like, selling crafts is ridiculous. That's not going to help. That's not going to fix this. But I did it. I came back. I said, all right, I'll try it, but it's not going to work, but I'll try it. And so I came back, started up doing some craft fairs, did some awesome stuff there, made some amazing connections. You know, in the end, I couldn't even tell you how much money. We probably made more than, I don't know how much we've made in crafts, so I can't say that. Probably 50,000 at this point, over all the years. It took a long time. But anyway, my point is, whatever it is he's calling you to do, obey it, take the action. Angelia, yay! Good to have you. I'm glad you're here. Makes me think of you with crafts, actually. That's funny. All right, I'm going to finish this verse, and then I want to jump down a little bit farther, because it kind of goes to, it does, not kind of, but it goes to this idea of, how does prayer lead to funding, right? Because it seems so, for me as a lawyer, it's like, yeah, Carrie, that's great, but that's not going to work. Like, yeah, prayer, okay, yeah, go take that. But now, like, let's do the real work. Like, that's how I always approached it. And my friend Nicole in Kenya was the one that taught me, it's not about going and doing the other work, right? Like, prayer is the work. And from there, he's going to lead you to what he's telling you to do. Not your great idea, not what the world says is the right way to do this, you know, not any of those things, but what he knows will work for you. Do you not want that from the creator of the universe? Or do you think you have a better plan? Because I did. I tried a lot of what I thought were better plans. And some of them actually made some money. Not tons of money, but some. But in the end, like, those were not the ones, because then I wasn't seeking him for vision. I wasn't seeking him for these things that I needed. I was seeking money. I was seeking the result. And so as we pursue this relationship, we want to make sure we're seeking him for him. We want to learn more about him. And as we learn more about him, he's going to reveal himself to us, and he's going to lead us to the crafts, to that right donor, to that whatever it is for you. Maybe it's a sports event, or I don't know, whatever it is for you, he's going to lead you to it. All right. Oh, I could go on and on about this stuff. All right, let me finish this verse, and then we're going to jump down to the rest of this chapter, but really get into Deuteronomy 6. It is amazing. All right, hear Israel and be careful to obey. So hear, take the time to hear, and then take action, obey. So why? Why are we going to do these things? So it may go well with you. Good. That you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey. Now, as I read, and then it says, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors promised you. God has a lot of promises in the Word of God. And that's something we're going to focus on a lot in the next few months is the promises. I've been focused on them for a year or two. Shani and I both have been focused on them for quite a while. And they are so, so powerful. And that's what we need to stand on in our funding. And I could do it all off of this verse. I don't even have to go lower. Just so, so powerful. But in the land, what does that mean? So you may increase greatly. Awesome. Who doesn't want to increase greatly, right? Personally, as well as in our nonprofit, all of those things, increasing greatly, good thing. Always a good thing. But where are we going to increase greatly? In the land. I feel like in the land for us, when we're talking about a nonprofit, is the vision. Like, where is he calling us to? What is he calling us to do? So we might be in the right country, right? Like we've got the DR on here today that I can see. If you're not on here and I can't see, if you don't make a comment, I can't see you. So I don't know that you're here because I'm over in StreamYard, not on Facebook. But that idea of, wherever it is he's calling you to do, that's the first step. And then what is he calling us to do right now? Right? He may be calling to a big, big grand vision, and he probably is. I can tell you he is, because otherwise you can handle it yourself and you don't need him. But what is that first step that he's calling us to do? So let's break that down and let's just take that first step and stay focused there on that step. Prayer, he can reveal other things, and we want to write those things down. So then when we're seeking vision and revelation in the future, we remember these times. So we definitely want to write down the big visions that he's giving us, and we need to steward those well. At the same time, then we want to take action on the smaller things. It's like, for now, I want you to focus on this and then do that. And it might be a tiny thing. I remember early on in my journey, I remember one of the things he said was loving people in my house. I had kids in the house, young kids, not young, but like preteens, teens in the house at the time, blended family, really, really a struggle. New marriage, blended family was not pretty, like so not pretty. And there was just a few relationships in the house that it was like, if you can't love here, right here in New Berlin, in your house at the time, I'm not going to send you around the world to love around the world. Like, you need to love who's in your house. So my point in that is it can be super small and simple things that he's calling you to do. Do them. Because he's not going to give you a bigger one until you do the first ones. That goes through what he's telling you in his word too, right? The idea of forgiveness, the idea of loving others, these basics that are in his word, so clear of what to do and how to do them. If we're not going to do those, he's not going to give us a bigger vision, because he's already given you a vision. It's in here. Start living this. As you start living this, then he's going to start revealing those other bigger purposes that he has for your life as we start living out the purposes he's clear about in his word. And that's in our families. That's in, just the clerk at the grocery store. It's in all of that. Oh, yeah. 7 minutes left. All right. So that idea of purpose and really getting clear on your purpose. And that is just a whole nother topic. In August, we're actually going to do another challenge on purpose. So related to nonprofit and really digging into that nonprofit purpose. So stay tuned for that. Then when we get down to where I really wanted to be was in like verses 10 through 12. So not Genesis, Deuteronomy 6, 10 through 12. And it was the idea of, so he's talking about being in the word. He's talking about above this. I'm not going to go into all these verses. Oh, actually, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Okay? Right there. That's a to-do, right? That's a job for me. I need to do those things. How do I do that? Through his strength. How do I do that? I need to be in the word. I need to use his strength to love those people that are really difficult to love. I need to use his strength to know what to let go of and what to keep. I need to do those things. And that's the verse that brought us over here to begin with at my Bible study. And that's the verse that really hit me. That idea of, am I loving God with all my heart, all my soul, and all my mind? If I'm angry at somebody else, I'm not loving him with my whole heart. I remember I went to a Bible study early on in my Christian career, one of my first Bible studies, and it just hit me. I remember exactly where I was sitting and which direction I was facing and who was there in the room. And it was a big classroom of people. And it was that idea of, like, Carrie, are not loving to somebody, right? Like if you can say you hate somebody, or you can say, whatever, you're not going to give forgiveness for something, then you are holding on to that bitterness. You are holding on to that grudge. You are holding on to that. And thereby, just by holding on to that, you are not loving God with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul. Because I have some of my focus somewhere else on bitterness. Like, no, I'm not forgiving that. Like, it wasn't okay what she did, and I'm not forgiving that. That might be true. It might not be okay what she did. It probably wasn't okay what she did. But you holding on to it is not okay either. So we need to let go of those things. We need to love God with all our heart, soul, mind. How do we do that? By making prayer and relationship number one. That is our first pillar. Now, what flows from that? So when we look at nonprofits, what flows from that when we do that? Now, it's not easy to do. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. It takes a process. It takes commitment. It takes things. Now, he'll start revealing things right away. Like you'll see action right away. But at the same time, like the long-term action, it might take a while. It depends how much bitterness we're sitting on. It depends how much hatred we're sitting on. And once we dump all of that, when we come back and have to cycle back at times, like I'm cycling back right now, it goes a lot faster because we've already been through most of the junk. And so now we just have to deal with the current junk that's kind of got us distracted or whatever. So I will say it takes a while at the beginning, but it's an amazing journey, right? And your relationships are better. Your funding for your nonprofit is better. Your life is better. Joy returns, peace returns, all of these things, or comes for the first time. In my case back then, it was coming for the first time. Like I had never felt that joy. I had never felt that peace given my life history. So what happens? I never noticed this until we read this aloud in my Bible study class the other day. What happens when we do this? When we seek God first, when we love him with all our heart, we love him with all our soul, we love him with all our strength, what happens? What happens? We get into a land with large flourished cities that we did not build. Now I'm down in Deuteronomy 10:11. So these are things like he'll bring us things that we didn't build, right? So I used to focus on all the busyness, like, oh, do another event and do this and do that. And let me just get out there and do all the world is telling me to do, right? But as I do that, then I'm not focusing on him. He may call me to a fundraiser, and he probably will. Then I should do that fundraiser. But if I'm seeking it out and I'm the one creating this plan and I'm the one doing these things, he's not going to bless that. Like he's not going to come and say, oh, Carrie, oh, that was a really great plan. Like I never thought of that. So let me just throw my blessing over there on that because you're right. That was better than what I thought. Like he's never going to do that. As I love him with all my heart, as I love him with all my soul, as I love him with all my strength, he's going to reveal a fundraiser or a funding source, a person, whatever, a way of funding, craft fairs, whatever it is. He'll reveal that as I take action on it, even if it seems crazy. He is then going to give me cities I didn't build. He's then going to give me, he goes on to say, houses filled with kinds of goods, things that you did not provide, meaning I didn't go out and work for it. He brought it. Why? So then I have to give him the credit and I can't take the credit for it. And he goes on and says, wells you did not dig, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, but yet you're reaping the benefits, right? Like this is relationship. This is why we put prayer first. This is why we put relationship first. All right. I got to start winding it down. Divine favor. Yes, that's what we need, Dana. We need his divine favor. We need his divine revelation to even know what to do. The vision of the project overall, for that, as well as the funding, right? So we need to take that time in relationship. So let's take this week to really focus on what that looks like. What is he calling us to in relationship? Is it right now in my life, 5 minutes in the morning? That might be what he's calling you to. Is it 1 hour? What does that look like? Do we have a specific place that we're doing it? What does that all look like? What does that all look like? Are we journaling? I'm not a fan of journaling, by the way. I don't like it at all. But at the same time, he reveals things through journaling. It doesn't matter if I like it. That is the way that he reveals things. And so I'm going to do it because that's what works, right? And it's not a plan or a strategy because, whatever it is, it might be artistic for you. Like for me, I'm a words person. So I'm not giving you a checklist. Don't say like, oh, if I do this, then this will work. He needs to reveal that to you. So get in relationship. I will say, get in this. Get in his word. As you get in his word, no time spent in his word is ever wasted. When I get overwhelmed and I don't know where to go, And it's like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. My day is so full and I've got this, that, and the other 10,000 things. And I don't know where to start. If I choose to start in his word, that is never wasted. Any project I choose to focus on may be wasted time because he might not be calling me to it, or at least not right now. But anytime I spend in the word is never wasted. It never comes back void. It's in Isaiah somewhere. So, all right, guys, I'm going long, but I love this topic and it's so important because it's what all the other pillars build upon, right? So if we don't get this right, you might make some money. I'm not saying you won't make some money, but it's not going to be with ease and grace. It's going to be with striving and really hard work and all of that. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. I want God's divine favor, right? I want God's plan, and I want God's plan for you. What worked for me might not work for you, but what God reveals to you, we can definitely help you walk that out. Like that is not we've walked a lot of things out, some of which He called us to, and some of which He hasn't. But at the same time, that idea, and then He's going to give us the cities we haven't built, the wells we haven't dug, the vineyards we haven't planted. He will give us that, even if the fundraiser doesn't deserve it. He will bring those things in. It's a miracle to watch Him work. Let's step back, stop the striving, and let's start loving God with all of our strength, all of our heart, all of our energy, all of it. And as we seek Him on that, He's going to give us where that money should come from, where that next step is, where that vision is next, all of those things. All right. So that's how we put the fun back in fundraising, you guys. Because with seeking Him, we're not seeking the money. We're not seeking some specific donor or some specific fundraiser or whatever. We are seeking Him. And as we do that, we're going to be filled. We're going to be filled with Him. We're going to be filled with ease. We're going to be filled with grace. We're going to be filled with favor. We're going to be filled with vision. So many things because we're seeking Him. So let's pull it back. Stop seeking the money, stop seeking the answers even of the vision, and start seeking Him for who He is, knowing He will reveal those things. Why? Because He promises to in His word. So let's get in the word. If you need a Bible study to make that happen, we've got one starting in a few weeks. Go check my personal page. You'll see that. Actually, it's next week, I guess. Next week, Tuesday and Friday, we've got 2 different times, one in the evening, one during the day. There's so many ways you can get in the word. So have that strategy and that one-on-one time with Him, because that is what's going to bring the fun back to fundraising. It'll bring that back in. All right, guys, we're going to sign off there for today. So for this week, let's figure out where's our place, what's our strategy as time in the word with Him, and then walking that out, getting that in the calendar. If we need an accountability partner to do that, like whatever that is, get it in the calendar, have a strategy of what you're actually going to do and a place that you're going to do it. And it's the same place all the time. And let's start walking that out this week. So then we're ready to build on our next pillar that we will share next week. All right. Yes. Thank you, Angelia. God is so good. He's speaking to me at the same time He's speaking to you guys. I am so excited that all He has done, He continues to do. And I'm excited to walk this journey out together. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.